welcome to another episode of the Marvel Masterworks podcast slash vidcast, depending on which one you're listening or watching. I am your host, Adam, and with me is Venom's most valuable fan. I screwed that. I don't know. Thanks, Venom.
MVF.
Yeah. Most valuable. Yeah, that's right. There it is. You're MVF. Take that, MJF. You think you're the only one that can shorten things to 3 letters? The NWO did it first. How about that? Anyway, Donnie is here with me, as he always is for these affairs. So, Donnie, the Emerald Enthusiast, how are you?
Through a boom tube to the Marvel Universe, it's the podcasting machine, the big nerd in green. It's the Emerald Enthusiast, here to talk to you about Marvel Comics.
Why don't we just call you the Venom Enthusiast when we're on here?
That would work too.
Or the Symbiote Enthusiast. I don't know.
Nobody knows me by that name, though. So.
Yeah, well, Twitter, it won't matter on Twitter because when you post it, you'll still be the Emerald Enthusiast. So it'll just be for show on for this thing.
Yeah.
Normally when we do, we haven't really done comic reviews on the Marvel Masterworks show yet, so this is kind of the first kick of the can, I guess. The way we do it on the DC Comics Chronicles is we usually do it for 4 books at a time, but because the Heroes Reborn summer event just launched, we thought, for the first issue at least, we'll give it its own special episode. And so that's what we're going to do.
Right here on YouTube.
Yes, right here on YouTube and on Podbean if you're just listening.
If you're interested in other comics, you can listen to us on iTunes and Podbean.
Yeah, because, any chance for shameless plug, Donnie's all up for that. Donnie, obviously, Heroes Reborn has a previous iteration that caused a lot of hoopla back in the day. But this is not connected to that, right?
No, this is something new. So,
all right. So it is I think it's a 2-month-long event. The actual Heroes Reborn story is 7 issues long. It may just on the basis of how I saw things scheduled on Comixology, these 7 issues may come out weekly, I think.
Okay.
At least by looking at the solicitations. So, Donnie and I haven't really talked about how we're going to. And in addition to the 7-issue series, there's going to be a series of one-shots along the way, focusing on specific characters. Donnie and I haven't figured out how we're going to specifically cover it. We'll finalize that once we get off of here. But we know we're going to cover for sure the main event, and so that's why we're taking the time to start with issue 1 for this episode. So, Donnie, with that, you read the issue.
Yes.
Give our viewers / listeners a brief synopsis of what the heck is going on in Heroes Reborn 2021.
Okay, well, let's start off with the people responsible for creating this issue. Jason Aaron, the writer, Ed McGuinness, the penciler, Mark Morales, the inker, Matthew Wilson, colorist, and VC's Corey Pettit, the letterer.
Jason Aaron has done a lot at Marvel. He's kind of their go-to, one of their go-to guys. He spent a long time on Thor, if I remember correctly. And he's currently shepherding the Avengers book at the moment. Ed McGuinness is, he's well known. He's well known in the industry.
Very much so.
He's worked for both Marvel and DC. Now he's back at Marvel doing a tenure there. I know Ed McGuinness most notably from his time at DC on the Superman and Batman Superman books. And that's how I got familiarized with his work.
Okay.
My first exposure to Ed McGuinness actually was when Jeff Loeb and him launched the Batman and Superman title back in 03 to 05 or whatever it was. And so that was my first exposure to him. Jason Aaron, I have read a bunch of his Thor stuff, and I've been reading his Avengers run as well. So all good stuff all around. So
right.
Both creatives are top notch.
Well, with this issue, it opens up in East Los Angeles, and you see somebody riding a bike through the streets, and that turns out to be Robbie Reyes.
Yeah.
And Robbie, even though he is the one speaking in the exposition, that you see that there is an unseen narrator at this point. Yeah. And Robbie rides past this narrator who you should be able to tell who it is basically from the car, even though his face is hidden in his first panel. And he asks Robbie, hey, where can I find the Ghost Rider? And Robbie is like, I don't know what that is. It sounds like something that'll kill you if you smoke it. And he rides past the narrator.
He's not wrong. Try and smoke Ghost Rider. You
I don't know.
Touch Ghost Rider in the wrong way. Look at him in the wrong way, you're in trouble.
So we see that this narrator within a few panels is actually Blade.
That's my boy. Yeah, Blade.
Yeah. Huge Blade fan, yes.
Yeah. He's I love Blade. Anything with Blade in it, I will consume. I just want to preface this before we go any further. I love the Blade films.
Likewise.
I enjoy all three of them, folks. I'm just going to call it what it is. I mean, the third one has some issues, but it's also got the game Triple H. So, I mean, as a wrestling fan, I'm going to dig it. I mean, Donnie, just before we continue with the comic,
sure.
I can't recall. Do you remember if he performed the pedigree in that movie?
I don't think he performed the pedigree.
Well, he should have. It's a missed opportunity, damn it.
There were some wrestling holds. The fight with Ryan Reynolds, a.k.a. Green Lantern.
I was going to say Ryan Reynolds. Who's that? Is that a new actor?
Ryan Reynolds.
We're in a multiverse, all right?
Yeah. But yeah, I actually, yes, it did have some issues. It didn't quite live up to the high standards set by the first and second movie. By the way, the second movie, Blade 2, is still my favorite R-rated comic book adaptation ever.
It's top tier.
Yeah, it is the perfect fusion of horror and superhero storytelling. So
I think we're going to be reviewing that trilogy on this very show at some point.
Likewise. Yeah.
Well, probably in October, folks. Just a spoiler. I'm going to be like Paul Heyman. This isn't a prediction, it's a spoiler. We're doing it in October. And also, two things I want to say, and then we'll move back to the comic. I think it's fair to say that in that movie, Blade Trinity, Triple H kind of had a triple threat match with Deadpool and Green Lantern. Yeah. And if you really want to get technical, it was a fatal four-way because the character he played in Blade, plus Deadpool, plus Green Lantern. So there you go.
That would be really funny for somebody to do a deep fake of that. That would be a very interesting video.
I'd watch it. And the other thing I want to say is, and Steven will get a kick out of this as he's editing. You know who else was in this movie?
Who else?
Legends of Tomorrow alum, Dominic Purcell. He waved himself.
Yes.
Steven right now, if he's actually listening while he's editing, is probably laughing hysterically. So, Steven, I hope you enjoyed that one. You know what I'm referring to. If you don't know, well, you're not in the know. If you know, you know. But okay, so back to the comic book, Blade. So I want to ask you a question, Donnie, because it seemed when I was reading it that Robbie was looking for the Avengers. Or was that Blade talking and I'm getting confused?
No, I think that I don't exactly know what Robbie was doing. Robbie was going somewhere quickly. It doesn't seem that the Avengers exist in this world at all. Yeah.
So it was Blade talking that was confusing me then.
It was, yeah. Blade is, yeah. He's the one doing, kind of the exposition.
In that case, forget about what I just said. But
okay.
I think the point is, and I should have picked up on this. You're right when he said, "What's a Ghost Rider?" It sounds like something you could die from if you smoke it.
Yes.
The cool thing about the initial phase of this story is that Blade is the only one that remembers who or what the Avengers is.
Mm-hmm.
Avengers Mountain apparently isn't even a thing. It's not even there.
No. And we see that Coulson is actually president in this reality.
Well, normally I'd say if it was the film version of Coulson, I'd be okay with that. I mean, you guys would be in good stead with Coulson as the president. A much better stead than what you guys went through for 4 years. But I digress.
Let's not go there.
Eddie Brock would be better. Lex Luthor, Sinestro, General Zod. Probably General Zod. Anyway, Mephisto. Mephisto's kind of stretching it, but you know where I'm going. Anyway, So Coulson's the president. But if you've been reading the Avengers run, you'll know that that's not a good thing in this scenario, because Coulson, speaking of Mephisto, seems from Jason Aaron's Avengers run, spoilers, seems to be in league with Mephisto. So, but yeah, he's the president,
and speaking of that, then the scene cuts to Washington, D.C., and we see at least a somewhat familiar character threatening the White House, and that is who you originally think it's Dr. Doom. He just calls himself Doom originally, but he is holding the Crimson Gem.
Right.
And then he becomes Dr. Juggernaut. And I got to say, Ed McGuinness, if you're talking about really jacked up, blocky characters, Ed McGuinness is the perfect penciler for this.
Yeah, remember when WWE back in the 80s was going through their steroid phase?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so everybody in the Ed McGuinness draws looks like a WWE wrestler in the 80s.
Yeah, well, I got to tell you, his this Dr. Juggernaut is huge.
Yeah, massive.
Yeah.
And obviously it's an amalgamation of Dr. Doom and Juggernaut.
Yes.
And it looks pretty cool.
I'll tell you what, that would make a wonderful looking Marvel Legends figure.
Oh, it'd be a great toy, yeah, for sure. I wonder.
I even like the Doom on the knuckles. You see, it's the DOOM on the knuckles.
Yeah, it's kind of like keep the wrestling theme going.
Yeah,
it's like Sasha Banks. She has that ring, those brass rings that spell out the word boss. Mind you, the only reason I noticed that is because it's very blingy and prominent. Otherwise, I don't spend a lot of time staring at Sasha Banks' hands. But that's not PG-13, so I'll leave it there. You can infer what you want based on what I just said.
Simmer down now.
And since I pointed it out, and it has not apropos of nothing to do with this podcast, Donnie, you know what happens every time I see Sasha Banks on TV?
I can guess, but why don't you illuminate our listeners?
I'll tell you what happened. Sasha Banks goes on the list. And it kind of does have something to do because Marvel is owned by Disney. Disney owns Star Wars, and Sasha Banks is in The Mandalorian. So it's all connected there, I can say.
Outstanding. Those are some wonderful mental gymnastics there.
Lot of stretching there. Mr. Fantastic would be all kinds of jealous. Anyway, continue. Yeah.
But also, we did cover WrestleMania 37 right here on YouTube. That is the Multiverse Musings vidcast. So,
yeah, and next we're covering WrestleMania Backlash, but that's in a couple of weeks.
So we see that the Dr. Juggernaut is then confronted by Hyperion. And I'm always down for Hyperion to show up. I think in issue 2, it looks like he may be fighting the Immortal Hulk. But looking at this panel here with those two colliding, that's definitely a nice, that would make a nice print to have an autograph in your room.
Oh, the cover looks beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to say Bruce Banner is called the Immortal Hulk.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish comics could play music, because when Hulk arrives on the scene with that name, with that moniker, he should come out to Real American. I'm just saying. I mean, instead of his shirt ripping open, his pants, his
I was going to say, maybe every panel should have a shirt rip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's funny, Donnie, is that I think it just so happens that before we see Hyperion and the rest of his compatriots,
Mm-hmm.
Blade tells us that, the Avengers never formed.
Right.
Tony Stark never got hit with the shrapnel in the heart,
Mm-hmm.
thereby never becoming Iron Man.
Yes.
He's still a weapons manufacturer and the whole jazz. He's just not Iron Man.
Yeah, you do see Tony Stark in this issue.
Yeah. But Tony Stark not becoming Iron Man isn't what precipitated the change in this universe.
Mm-hmm.
The big event that precipitated that was the fact that Captain America seemingly died
mm-hmm.
in World War II.
And we get a little bit more information on that later on in the issue.
Right, but I'm just teeing it up there.
Sure. And Blade doesn't exactly know what's going on either. Blade he's looking for answers as well, hence him being the narrator of this book.
Yeah, and I was totally reading in Wesley Snipes' voice.
And speaking of those Ed McGuinness drawings, I really like the image here when Dr. Juggernaut tries to choke Hyperion and he just flexes his traps and his neck muscles and just destroys part of the armor.
Yeah. That was kind of a cool move.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't Hyperion look like Brian Cage?
He really...
A blonde Brian Cage. Come on, you could see it.
Yeah, to me, he looks like an amalgamation of Robin and Superman, like if those two characters were, put together. But anyway,
with Brock Lesnar's physique, exactly.
Yeah, yes, yes. So you see, as those two fight, then we cut to another member of the Squadron Supreme, and that is Nighthawk.
Right, which is the Batman, and like Hyperion. Okay, spoilers. Hyperion is basically Marvel's Superman. Marvel's analog Superman.
Yeah, the Squadron Supreme, they are an analog of the Justice League. So this is basically Marvel writing a story saying that if the Justice League happened instead of the Avengers, and how this reality would exist then, and how it would differ from the main reality that we know, the 616, if you will.
Yeah, and so not to be confused with the 619, but
right. that's completely different.
But anyway, different area code, different wrestling moves. So take it back. Anyway, but so yeah, basically, the crux of this opening salvo, this opening story, is that if Captain America isn't discovered in the ice, right,
mm-hmm.
and revived, then the Squadron Supreme, aka Marvel's DC analog, are the Earth's mightiest heroes.
Yes. And so we see this ripple effect. The next thing we see is that the White House is being, or is it the Capitol building? Yeah. So it is being overrun by, or engulfed, I should say, by the seemingly a Venom symbiote. Yeah. And yes, so inside we see that Nighthawk comes into battle with the Black Skull, which is, by the way, a really creepy looking character, and that is an amalgamation of Venom and the Red Skull.
I figured you'd like that design, Donnie.
Yes. Yeah.
When I saw it, I'm like, Donnie must be really geeking out over this.
Yeah.
Donnie's like, where's the toy? Where's my... Donnie became the Judge Judy gif where she's tapping her watch. That would be Donnie's like, all right, McFarlane or whoever produces the Marvel. Toys, Hasbro, whoever it is, he was doing this. So, somebody get on that, because that would be a cool.
Oh, I fully expect to see that character.
Yeah.
So then we cut to the sky, and we see Dr. Spectrum, who is an analog of the one and only Green Lantern.
Right.
And if you want to hear about Green Lantern, you can listen to the Emerald Echo podcast, available on iTunes and Podbean, and also the Emerald Echo vidcast, available right here on YouTube.
You have to know that was good.
Shameless plug. So this is a really interesting visual. We also see Tony Stark during this period here, and of course asking about Happy Hour. Blade is kind of lurking in the shadows in Washington here and trying to make sense of things, and that's when he sees a statue of Captain America.
Right.
And it says, "In loving memory." So this goes back to what you were saying earlier, that the world thinks Captain America is dead.
Yeah.
So yes. So then we cut to another scene. We see the Blur, analog of the Flash, fighting the Silver Witch.
Not Tom Welling's Clark Kent for 9.5 seasons on Smallville. Not to be confused. Just want to clarify that.
And not Blur the Transformer. Yes.
Also.
This is an analog of the Flash. I believe the original, was it the Squadron Sinister? I think it was Whizzer was the Flash analog.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So then we cut to another scene. Again, it's kind of going through this big battle. You see the unstoppable Algog fighting the Power Princess, who is obviously an analog of Wonder Woman.
It basically is Wonder Woman, but her costume is, instead of blue, red, and gold, it's black.
Yeah, it's kind of like, black and kind of a black and a dark gold.
So basically, imagine Zack Snyder's Justice League version of Superman, the costume, but on Wonder Woman. Basically, that's what it is.
Yeah. If you did not know this was that this was Power Princess and you just saw her face, you think Wonder Woman.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I was like, Diana, is that you? When I was reading.
She really does.
Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah. So we cut back to space, and Dr. Spectrum is fighting against a very well-known Marvel villain who is seemingly making constructs of various colors, which I thought was a wonderful visual. And that is, of course, Thanos, who seems to be a vampire version of Thanos. I don't know if that's just an artistic choice or if those...
that was a really cool image, though. Like the
yes. But he seems to be a vampire.
Can you imagine Vampire Thanos if that's actually the case? Mm-hmm. Man, that's we're in deep. You know what?
Exactly.
That's the case.
Yeah, Bantha Poodoo. Okay.
Yeah.
To praise a Star Wars reference.
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly.
So, and again, Ed McGuinness, drawing someone like Thanos, his abilities are lent perfectly here.
Especially a splash page like that,
Wonderful looking, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then we take a step back to Norway days earlier, and you see that Blade is having a conversation with a very familiar face, and he's in a... Yes, well, he does look a little bit like Triple H during a certain period. And
the reason I say that is because remember years ago when they were casting Thor, I saw so many Triple H calls, and I'm like, this is why studios should never listen to the internet, because I love Triple H is great in the WWE, but one of the issues with Bray Trinity was Triple H's acting.
Well, he didn't have a lot of experience at that point.
Right, but what I'm saying is wrestler, just because The Rock has done it, and Batista, not every wrestler is cut out to make a transition to Hollywood.
Right. Well, that's definitely true. Over the years, there have been a lot of low-budget wrestler movies, and you can go online and find those, and there's a reason.
Yeah, I mean, Mr. Nanny, right?
Yeah, what was it? Abraxas? Guardian of the Universe, that was an early Jesse Ventura effort. And
then there was Suburban Commando. But again, I mean, I wouldn't want to see any of these guys playing top-tier superheroes.
Although eventually Jesse Ventura did become a respectable actor. So
yeah, my favorite performance of his was the security guard in Batman and Robin. Actually, it wasn't. I'm just being sarcastic.
He was good in Predator. Nonetheless, we should go back.
My favorite moment of Batman and Robin was the ending. But anyway, I digress. Like the credits, I mean.
Right.
It's over.
Yeah.
But continue.
I like the Snow Miser rendition in that, but
all right, I'll give you that. Yeah.
Anyway,
so is it a Christmas movie then? Does that make it a Christmas movie?
So that's a good point. So back to the scene here, we see Blade talking with Thor in some kind of pub, and Thor does not want to speak to him. And what I thought was really funny here is as Thor is kind of railing at him to leave me alone, he tosses his cookies right on the floor, right in front of Blade's feet.
Yeah.
It's funny. I remember my mother talking to me about, not being too graphic with my drawings in art class when I was, in elementary school. And she was like, nobody wants to see something like, somebody throwing up in a drawing. And I was like, hey, obviously that's not true,
Right.
So,
Mom,
yeah,
you were wrong.
So 35 years later, I know that that's not true because this is in a Marvel book. So
you could show her the panel. You could be like,
that's right. Yeah.
Send her an email for Mother's Day. Look, Ma, you were wrong.
Yeah. So then the scene cuts back to Nighthawk.
Can I just say quickly?
Go ahead, sir.
I like the fact that Thor is like the sort of story points where apparently Odin is dead.
Mm-hmm.
And he never found the hammer.
Right.
So, like, it's already telling you. I mean, Captain America not being around is the big thing.
Right.
But Tony Stark never being hit with the shrapnel, Thor never finding the hammer. These are all, instances that key factors for each of the main characters. That if that's not present, it turns everything upside down.
Yes. Again, ripple effects throughout this universe.
Yeah.
So we go back to the scene of Nighthawk fighting the Black Skull's minions, some version of Hydra. One of them actually seems to try to say hail Venom, and he's cut off by a kick from Nighthawk. And Blade jumps in to help Nighthawk. And again, a lot of great visuals here. I really like that. I like the the image of Blade with the bloody sword. Looks really good.
When they were back to back fighting.
Yes.
That was one of my favorite pages. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And of course, they defeat them. The scene cuts back outside, and we see the continued fight between Dr. Juggernaut and Hyperion. Brief conversation with Coulson here, who does seem at least to be somewhat villainous based on his expressions.
Yeah.
At least this version of Coulson.
Yeah.
And so this ends up, I guess, up in the ice, up in Antarctica.
Yep.
And it does cut back temporarily to a scene where you see Thor accidentally call down the lightning. And as we see Blade in the ice, then we see at the same time, Blade finds the frozen body of Captain America. You see Thor's hammer, presumably Mjolnir, come down in front of him in the bar. And so that's kind of a dual image page there. Wow.
That was great. It was fantastic.
That is a way to end a book. So again, whatever changes have happened here, we see that it's because these events for the Avengers have not happened yet, and they never got together. So
yeah, and again, it looks pretty clear to me that Blade is going to take it upon himself to try and restore the Marvel Universe as it once was.
Yes.
And I love that Blade is getting a big push because he's one of my favorite Marvel characters. I just want to, if I could send a special message to anybody at Marvel who listens to this, if anybody at Marvel listens to this, folks, in the words of Batista, give me what I want. And what I want is a Blade book. Blade, it's time. I don't know how long it's been, at least a decade, if not more, since Blade has had a book.
That's a good point.
He needs a book. He's got an Academy Award winner set to play him in a couple of years. He needs a book.
Yeah. But as I alluded to earlier, one of the things you see after the story, kind of the teasers at the end, the images, is the Immortal Hulk fighting Hyperion.
Yes.
And that is, again, that's something I never get tired of, is seeing the Hulk go toe-to-toe with Hyperion, any version of those two characters. So
I just like when the Hulk is a raging, a green raging monster, as opposed to comedic relief in Thor Ragnarok. Anyway, I'm not bitter about that movie, not at all. And
I like Thor Ragnarok, but
some parts are okay, but it's probably my least favorite. This is going to be controversial. My least favorite Thor movie.
Okay.
Of the three, but we'll talk about that more when we talk about Thor movies.
Okay.
I'm so looking forward to the rest of this and seeing how it plays out. This introductory issue sets the table and gives you, the new status quo.
Yes.
And just some of the changes, have me so intrigued to see two things. What else has changed? Like for instance, what happened to Peter Parker?
Good point. Yeah.
What about Matt Murdock? The Fantastic Four. What happened to them?
Well, there's a lot of imagery after the story ends that gives you kind of little teasers as to where those characters are headed.
Yeah. So I want to see all that, and then how exactly is Blade going to restore everything?
Yeah, that's a good question, because Blade himself seems to be, he doesn't know how he got there, how he got into this version of reality.
And that's another question that we have to answer. Is it simply because, what led to it? We know that in this universe, they didn't find Captain America in the ice, but
yeah, what force is behind this? Sure.
Yeah. So, so all interesting questions that will be answered over the course of the next 6 issues and several one-shots.
I do want to say, though, if you're a longtime Marvel fan, there are a lot of things here that will seem familiar to you. So just because this is a number one and a brand new story, don't let that turn you off. There's something here for new fans and veteran fans.
I think it works well as both you can jump right in, or if you're a longtime fan, you can appreciate the little nods.
Yes.
It's the best of both worlds.
Exactly.
But I really enjoyed it, and I think, unless there's anything else you want to call out, we can give a rating.
No, let's go ahead and rate it then.
All right, so what'd you think? Story
4.5, art 5 on a scale of 1 to 5.
I'm going to go ahead and agree with you on 100%. Story is 4.5. It would have been nicer if we could have got a snapshot of some of the other characters, even briefly, kind of like we did with Tony Stark and Thor, but I guess that'll come with time. But 4.5, and then art, it's fantastic. In this kind of, action, I call it the summer movie blockbuster kind of book. And Ed
Good
McGuinness,
parallel, yes.
Yeah, Ed McGuinness is perfect for those.
Mm-hmm.
I can't wait to see him draw the Hulk again. So, 5. Great start. Again,
I agree.
Donnie and I will figure out how we're going to cover this going forward, but we will be back relatively soon with at least another issue or two to review. But we urge you to pick it up in the meantime via either your local comic shop or Comixology. And then if you want to participate in a discussion with us, you can by commenting below on the YouTube video and telling us what you thought of the issue. Or you can follow us on social media and talk with us. So, Donnie, how can they find you on the socials?
You can find me on Twitter as the Emerald Enthusiast. Let's talk comics, let's talk collectibles, let's talk Green Lantern or any other comic book characters. Find me on Twitter.
Awesome. And you can find me on Twitter at Adam_LeafsFan. The Multiverse Musings Podcast Network also has a Twitter page. It's at MMNPDC. If Facebook is more your style of social media, we have the Multiverse Musings Podcast Network Facebook page. The link should be below in the with the description of the video. Click that. Ask for permission to join. I'll add you, and we can continue the conversation there. But we hope you enjoyed this, and we hope you will continue to support the comic book industry. And remember that Heroes Reborn 2021 is not forever. It's for 7 issues. From the first alteration to the Marvel Universe to the last. So long, everybody.
So long, everyone.